What if the world only saw your skin, and not your story? What if the very hands that heal lives were treated as dangerous, until the truth broke through in front of everyone? The wheels of luggage rolled across polished airport floors, families said their goodbyes. But for him, this wasn't just a flight, it was a milestone. A doctor, a father, a man carrying years of work meant to save lives. Yet before he could even board his plane, the weight of prejudice came crashing down. What happened next turned a moment of humiliation into one the world would never forget. This is unheard evidence, where the facts speaks louder than words. Watch until the end, because what happens in that airport line will leave you shaken. It began with the sound of rolling luggage wheels across the polished floor of the airport and the soft chatter of families saying goodbye. But for him, it was supposed to be a moment of pride, not shame, because he wasn't just flying anywhere. He was flying to stand on a stage in front of hundreds of medical professionals to share research that had taken him years to complete. Research that would one day save lives. But before he could even step onto the plane, before he could feel the satisfaction of accomplishment, the weight of prejudice slammed into him in a way he hadn't expected and in a way his young daughter standing by his side would never forget. They had woken up early, his daughter clutching the little stuffed bear she always carried when they traveled, and he had rehearsed his presentation in the car while his wife drove, making her laugh as he stumbled over his own jokes. But the moment they stepped into the security line, the air shifted. At first, it was nothing, just the ordinary shuffle of people taking off their shoes and belts. But then he noticed the way the agent's eyes lingered on him longer than on anyone else, the way the body language stiffened, the way an unspoken suspicion began to thicken around him like smoke. His daughter squeezed his hand, asking if they would get window seats, but he could already feel what was about to unfold, because this wasn't the first time. When it was their turn, the agent's tone shifted into something sharper, colder, carrying that edge of power that comes not from rules but from assumption. "Step aside, sir," the agent said, not looking at him as a human being, not seeing the years of study, not seeing the hours he had spent saving lives in emergency rooms, only seeing the color of his skin and the shape of his features. He complied, calmly, as he always did, placing his bag on the counter, explaining that he was traveling with his daughter and needed to get to his gate. But the agent's questions cut deeper, unnecessary, invasive, dripping with doubt. "Where are you really going? What's in this bag? Who packed it for you?" His daughter's eyes darted back and forth, confused, frightened, her small voice whispering, "Daddy, why are they asking you that?" He smiled down at her, trying to shield her innocence, but inside he felt the weight of every time he had been treated as less, every time his dignity had been questioned for no reason other than prejudice. The line of passengers grew, people staring, some pretending not to notice, others pulling out their phones, recording quietly, because everyone could sense it wasn't procedure anymore, it was something uglier. He tried to keep his composure, tried to remind himself that losing his temper would only feed into their expectations. But the humiliation burned as the agent pulled out his belongings, spreading them across the counter as if searching for proof of guilt. His stethoscope rolled across the table, his medical journals flipped open, his notes spilling onto the floor. "What's this for?" the agent asked, holding up his research folder as though it were contraband. He answered patiently, "That's for my lecture in Boston. I'm presenting at the International Cardiology Conference." The agent smirked, unconvinced, muttering under his breath, "Sure you are." Every second stretched into a lifetime. His daughter's grip on his hand tightened, her bear pressed against her face as though it could shield her from the scene. The humiliation wasn't just his anymore. It was hers too. The moment carved itself into her memory, the lesson that sometimes the world judged her father not for his kindness, not for his brilliance, but for something he could never change. He remembered his own father's words echoing in his mind, words spoken decades earlier after another incident of being pulled over for driving in the wrong neighborhood. His father had said, "They will always try to strip you of dignity, but you decide if you let them succeed." And now, here he was, living that same story again, only this time with his daughter watching. The search dragged on, the questions piling up, the crowd whispering, and just when he thought the humiliation had reached its peak, the agent raised his voice and called for backup, making it sound as though they had caught a dangerous criminal. 2 more officers arrived, standing tall, hands near their holsters, watching him as if he were about to explode, and his daughter began to cry softly, whispering, "Daddy, are we in trouble?" That whisper cut deeper than any insult ever could. He knelt down, looking her in the eye, promising her it would be okay, even though inside he wasn't sure how this would end. The humiliation was total, until the twist began to reveal itself. A voice called out from behind the security line, sharp, authoritative, carrying a weight that silenced the whispers. "What on earth is going on here?" Everyone turned. It was the conference organizer, a respected figure in the medical world, who had come to personally escort him through the airport. The organizer pushed through the crowd, recognizing him instantly, calling him by name. "Doctor, we've been waiting for you. The keynote can't start without you." Silence. The security agents froze, their authority crumbling in an instant as the crowd began to murmur louder, this time with judgment not toward him but toward them. Phones recorded every second, capturing the reversal as the supposed suspect was revealed not as a criminal, but as a man the world had gathered to honor. The look on the agent's face shifted from smug certainty to sudden shame, but it was too late. The crowd had seen. His daughter had seen. The very moment they tried to strip him of dignity, the truth restored it tenfold. He calmly collected his belongings, not gloating, not angry, simply dignified. He turned to the agents and said, "The only thing dangerous in my bag was knowledge. The kind that saves lives." And with that, he took his daughter's hand and walked through, the applause of strangers following him as if justice itself demanded it. On the plane, his daughter leaned against him, whispering, "Daddy, I'm proud of you." He closed his eyes, the weight of humiliation still heavy but transformed into something else, something his daughter would carry as a lesson, that no matter how deeply prejudice tries to humiliate, truth has a way of shining through. And when he finally stood on that stage in Boston, looking out at the sea of faces, he didn't just talk about medicine. He talked about dignity, about resilience, about the way a person's worth is never defined by those who fail to see it. The audience rose to their feet, not just for the science he presented, but for the humanity he embodied. And that is the lesson. Prejudice may humiliate, but it cannot define. Those who wield power with bias will always be revealed for what they are, and those who hold on to dignity will always rise. Because respect costs nothing, but the lack of it can cost everything. This is not just his story, it is a reminder that justice, though delayed, eventually finds its way, and that no matter how heavy the burden of bias, the strength of dignity will always carry us through. Prejudice may try to strip dignity, but it can never define it. In the silence after humiliation, truth has a way of rising, louder than suspicion, stronger than bias. This story is a reminder. Respect costs nothing, but the lack of it can cost everything. Because in the end, dignity always finds a way to break through. Subscribe to Unheard Evidence, where justice begins with asking the right questions.